everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this fun and funky double-sided cab pendant. We're going to be learning some right angle weave as well as peyote and herringbone all in one stitch. Gather up your materials that were listed first, or check out the links below me in the video in that little drop-down menu or the scrolls on the right-hand side. Thanks so much for joining me, and gather up and get ready to go. So to get started, we have some Delica beads that we're working with, and I'm working with them in the black color. I need it to be big enough, the starting section, that it's going to go around both of my cabochons. And because I'm using square, we're going to need to basically square off the corners. The easiest way to do this is going to be to start with a right angle weave. We're going to be doing right angle weave, and if you're not familiar with it, we are going to basically be doubling the right angle weave. I have lots of other videos showing how to do the right angle weave, so start there if you need to. I have 0.006 wildfire beading thread with a stop bead, a bead that I'm going to take off my project, on there to literally stop the beads. I have a size 12 needle, and I'm going to begin by picking up a total of 8 beads, 4 groupings of 2. Once I have those 4 groupings of 2 on my needle, I'm going to let it drop down to that bottom bead, to that 15-0 that's working as a stop bead. Go ahead and take your thread and needle and go back through the first 6 beads. That's basically going to be going through 3 sides of your right angle weave. Once you have those on, that is going to sit on the side basically of our cabochon. We're going to continue on with that right angle weave, and I want you to go ahead and add in 2, 4, and 6 more beads. So you can see I did them in groupings of 2 because I'm thinking of them as sides grouped together. Once I have those 2 on, or I'm sorry, those 6 on, I'm going to sew back through the 2 that my thread was coming out of. It's exiting the left-hand side of those 2 beads. I'm going to sew into the right-hand side of those same 2 beads. Again, what we're going to do now is we're going to go in and we're going to sew through the first 4 beads that we just added. So we're sewing up through 2 around in a circle. And then we're going to sew through the next 2 beads. That's going to get me my second set of my right angle weave. Continuing on, 2 go onto your needle, another set of 2 to make 4, and another set of 2 to make 6. This time the thread and needle are coming out that right hand side of those last 2 beads, so I'm going to go into the left hand side. Taking that up through then, I'm going to flip it in my hand because it's easier to hold. I'm going to sew through the first 4 beads that I added. So through 2, which is one side, and then through the next 2. We're going to continue this right angle weave stitch to go the whole way around our cabochon. If you're doing a 25mm square cab combination like I am, you're going to need a total of 24 boxes. 20 is going to be the sides. I need 5 of these little right angle weave boxes for the sides. And then I need 1 for each corner. So it's going to end up being 24. As I finish up, I have 23 boxes already ready to go. And I'm coming out of the last of my boxes. I add 2 of my 11-0 seed beads onto my needle. And with the needle then, I'm going to flip over and kind of round out to the other side. I want this to sit in a rounded circle and not have any loops or twists. I'm going to sew down through the first 2 seed beads on the other side. And this is going to close out my right angle weave. And then coming back to the starter side here, 2 more beads go on. And I'm going to sew through those 2 beads that my thread was coming out of. This is going to finish up this loop of right angle weave that is going to be the exterior of my beads. And you can see here when you're looking at it then, it's really seamless and you're not going to be able to actually even see where it starts and where it stops along the line of this right angle weave. So from here, we're going to get ready to do our pink side, which I'm doing the pink side in that opaque Duracoat Opaque Lychee in the 11.0 Delica. And I'm going to do that on my bird side. On the other side, I'll just do black as I go in and kind of do that geometric and keep that a little bit more fancy. So for the side that's going to be a little bit more fun and whimsical, I'm coming out one of the sides of my right angle weave. You want to think of kind of the rows that are going to sit horizontal to the pendant, and then these are the rows that are going to sit vertical, and you're going to see them towards the front and the back of these pendants or these cabochons. I'm coming out the two that are going to sit along the sides here, and I'm going to add one of my 11.0s between each of my sides of my right angle weave. So I'm going to add one and then sew up through those two seed beads that are going to sit along the side. I'm going to repeat this 6 times until I get to a corner. So one goes on, and then I sew up through the two along the sides. This is going to pull this right angle weave a little bit tighter and also make it cooperate more, that you have that nice side action started. Again, one bead goes on and you sew up through the two along the sides. I have 3 on, and I'll do this now 3 more times and then show you that cornering technique. On the front and the back of the cabochons, we are going to be doing be doing peyote stitch. On the corners, we're going to be doing herringbone stitch. So we already did the right angle weave. Now we're setting ourselves up and getting ready for our peyote stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more. When you add the 6th bead in, we're going to get our herringbone set up. Instead of sewing through both of the 2 beads along the next right angle weave, I want you just to sew through 1 bead and out. When you are through that 1 bead, add 2 of those pink Lychee Delicas, and then sew through the 2nd bead of that same cornered right angle weave unit. After you sew through that, you're going to go back to your pattern again of your 6 independent beads. So one goes on up through then the next line of the right angle weave. When you get to the back section and you're doing the exact same thing along the back, you want to make sure that you put your corners in at the exact same spot. So basically look across and make sure that you have one, and then you pick up the correct right angle weave to be your corner. So here I have 2 seed beads in, 3 in, 4, 5, up through the 2, and then the next one I add is my 6th. So I know I'm coming out after the 1st bead in that right angle weave because that's going to be my corner. Add 2 beads to get ready to do my herringbone stitch along the corners, and go through the 2nd bead of that side of that right angle weave. That gets me 2 in, and you can see that cornering effect that's already starting to happen. And I want to go in and create the rest of it. So again, 6 Delicas go on. You go through 1 of the Delicas of the right angle unit after that 6, add 2 beads to get ready for herringbone, and then continue on. As I get back to the start, I'm adding in my 6th bead here, and I know I need to separate out these 2 Delicas right near the start to be my final corner. So I'm going to go in here, put in my 2 11s, and then I'm going to step up going through that last black Delica bead as well as that first pink Delica bead that I put on in this row. It might be a little tight in there. Just kind of make sure that your last 2 pink Delicas are sitting nicely and are not twisted at all. And there you have it. So you can see it's kind of already sitting in a square. You want to drop your cabin, especially if you're using a different size, and just make sure that it sits perfectly in there. Again, I kind of have those corners sitting, so I have that nice way for it to sit and to fit in there pretty perfectly. So there I have that one side right now that I have that right angle weave, and I'm going to have the other one sitting to the back. So it's going to sit right in there, right in nicely, and kind of snap in there. So I have the front now, and I'm gonna basically be working on the back as well. Once I have the back, the cabochon will stay in there and they really won't move. Because I'm at the front, I'm going to work a little bit more with the front. So we're gonna be going around and doing peyote stitch. When I do the peyote stitch, I am gonna do run row where I'm mimicking what's going on here. So I have 2 beads, let me take that out here. I have 2 beads that sit in the black, and we're gonna do some peyote stitch. So I know I'm gonna do 2 beads in the pink. Sew into the next open pink bead that you added on. Again, 2 more pink beads go on. Sew into the next open pink. So we're doing peyote stitch, but because we have 2 beads below, we're adding 2 beads above. 2 go on to the next one. 2 go on to the next. 2 go on again. As I come out the next one, here's where that cornering is going to occur. So I'm on the section now that has those 2 beads ready to go. When I'm on this section and I have the 2 beads ready to go, I'm gonna add 1 of my Delica beads to get that corner ready, and I'm gonna go up through that first pink bead in the section where I added 2. Where that is, I'm gonna add 2 more pink beads and down the other side. So this is going to be a herringbone stitch. You're adding 2 beads in at a time. Make sure they cooperate and you get that kind of nice edging effect. Next, I'm going to go in and add my actually, I'm sorry, with that edging, I'm going to omit that single bead there, add those 2 beads, and come back and sew into the peyote stitch. So I want to omit that single bead and go in. As I go around then, again, 2 beads go on between each of my sections here. And then as I come out the last one of my Delicas, go right into that herringbone stitch, add 2, and come on down. So again, just to show, since I omitted that bead, we're putting our last 2 beads on. And when we're at the corner, you're going to go right into that first Delica bead of that grouping of 2 beads. Add 2 more for that herringbone stitch. Come down through the second and then right over to that first pink Delica. That's going to then get you ready to add 2. So when you're looking back at it, here's kind of that first pink row that you can see, adding in the side, and I have 2 more sides to do. As you finish up kind of your last go round, adding in your 2 beads there for your herringbone stitch, keep in mind you need to go down into that single pink bead from the first row of pink. And then to step up to continue on, you're going to go through those first 2 pink Delica beads and bring your needle out to set you up for your next go round of your peyote stitch. So I'm going to be using the Miyuki Duracoat Opaque Moody Blue in the 15-0 as I come to the front of the sparrow. When you go to the back and you're doing the just design, you're going to want to use black if you want to keep it nice and easy and simple. So in between each of my Delica beads here, I'm going to get ready to start basically pulling the design in. I'm going to add a 15-0 and sew through that 2 open beads that I just added on the last row. So you're still doing peyote stitch, but instead of adding an 11-0 between each, we're adding a 15-0. What that's going to do is start to pull it down a little bit and make it so it's a little bit tighter, so we start to get it actually pulled in. Our next go round will actually be adding in 2 15-0s to really pull it even more so tightly around the top. As you get to the corner then, here you are again at the corner, you're going to add 1 15, and then you're going up into that second grouping there of the herringbone stitch. When you come out the top on that corner, add 2 of your 15s and then down 1. And those 2 15s will sit right along that corner of that herringbone stitch. 1 15 on through the next 2. So I used really contrasting colors too, so you can see that nice version of the peyote stitch, 115.01, through the next 2 beads. And you can see it really starting to pull in that basket and making it nice and tight. So that way as we come around and we do our last row, we'll basically pull in those sides so there's no way for that cabochon to escape. So adding in your last 15.0, you're gonna go through the 2 first pink seed beads that your thread was coming out of. And then you're gonna come out through that first blue 15. Again, to pull it really tightly, we're gonna go around 1 more row of our peyote stitch, adding in 2 15s and going through the 1 blue 15 that's already there. This will really kind of pull that in, and these will bend in the front. So going around here, I'll show you, we get 2 more, connecting to all those single blues. As you come around to your corner, what you're gonna do is you're going through that single blue that's there, right there along the side. And as you go through that single blue and bring your needle out, you're gonna pull your needle up through the pink and the blue, go through both blues, we're not adding any beads on our corner, and go down through the pink and the blue. So basically you're sewing through 4 corner beads, up the pink, through the 2 blue, down the pink, and continuing on. Our corners already have enough going on. Continuing on then, on go my next 2 beads, give a nice little tight pull, and you can see that starting to really pull in towards the center. So as you finish up, you have 2 last 15 that you need to put in place, and you're sewing through that first blue 15 in that first row of peyote, and that finishes up all of those quarters. What I'm gonna do now is put my my square in here so you can see exactly what it looks like. And I also want to be able to pull it tight and kind of reinforce and sew around, so that way I'm not doing that after the fact. I want to make sure to do that as I'm doing it, so I'm not overstretching it. That finishes up the front, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the back section now, which is going to be the exact same but just in all black, and kind of popping that in there, pulling all of those black beads now to the back of the design. Once I have that, then I will flip over and we'll finish off and pull in the tight corners there and finish up the actual design. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna hold the cabochon in there, come to the other side, and you're sewing in exactly what we just did, all in black. And black 11/0s for where I did the pink Delicas, and then the black 15/0s where I did the blue. So just to show, here is the back all bezeled in with that nice, just simple black look. Again, it gives it that nice elegant look, and then we flip it over and we're having fun with our bird. So in the back, I did go in and kind of seam up the edges. Because it's all black, I'm going to show you how to do that on the side with the birds, now that that's in there, since this has some color to it. Once you're finished going around and kind of finishing up the cab, if you continue on with the front, or if you come over here to the back, basically what you're going to do is get your needle and thread to the front of the cabochon. Whenever you need to do that, going from the back to the front, you always want to make sure to follow a thread path. So I'm basically going to sew back through the cab and along the side, going through that peyote stitch, basically kind of on a diagonal, and getting my needle from the back of the cabochon to the front of the cabochon. Once I'm out the front along those blue beads, then I'll show you how we actually stitch up and hold it in nice and tight. So I'm to the front of the pendant now, and I'm coming out on one of my corners through the 2 beads. I'm going to grab one 15/0 seed bead, and I'm going to sew through those 2 blue 15s that are along the peyote stitch row. Once I have those in, I'm going to sew right along the peyote stitch through the next 2 beads. So I'm not adding any seed beads in there. This is going to help to kind of pull it in tight, so that way we get that nice cornering effect like I did on the black side here. When you pull in, then you're going to add in 1 15, go through that middle section of 2, because basically there's 5 sections of 2. add another seed bead after those two, and then sew right through the next 4 15s and out. Give a nice tight yank, and that's going to pull that and kind of flop that peyote stitch along the side. Add a 15, and then go up through those 2 15s that sit at the corner. We're going to repeat this same thing 4 times to pull it in, and you can see how it's getting that nice kind of pulled in right along the corner, and you can kind of play with your peyote stitch and your squares if you need to until we get that last row in. Once I have the last row here, I'm going to reinforce the whole thing by sewing back through this whole row of seed beads. If you want to, you can really play it up. Check out some other videos that we have about adding crystals along the side and getting fancy with the bails and all of that. I'm just going to do a simple herringbone stitch bail to kind of finish up the actual pendant here. But you can see I'm adding in the 2 beads along the sides, holding the cabochon in place. If you want to also, you can glue the cabs together. So I know this is going to be one of the questions. What happens if you just want to use one cabochon? Instead of doing the right angle weave in the cube with the 4 beads or the 2 beads per side, just do 1. And that's going to get you set up so you can finish off the cabochon, and it's the thickness just of that 1 cab. So again, continue on with basically creating this nice little netting that's coming around and kind of circling around our nice little bird. As you finish up the side here with your sparrow, you're going to add your last 15-0 in, go into that corner that our thread was coming out of, and then work your thread and needle back. I should have thought about this and kind of flipped that cabochon around. You're going to work your thread and needle back to the top of the pendant, reinforcing and kind of coming out the top here so we can add our bail right at the top of our little bird. When you're at the top of the pendant, I'm coming out the 2 black 15-0s that sit in the middle of basically my rows of 5 right angle weave. And it's hard to see because the sides of the cabochon kind of reflect. But I'm coming out those 2 beads, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm just making a ladder stitch arch between my 2 sides of my right angle weave. So you can choose to do this in color in the back. So I'm going to do the pink towards the back to add some of that color in the back. And because I want it to be incredibly reversible with that nice formal black backing, I am going to actually do the front with the black. So you can make that, again, reversible. If you have super thick cabs, my cabs are really thick. I probably even could have done an extra row of seed beads there, or an extra seed bead. So I would have had 3 and then 2 on the side. So the middle row of the right angle weave would have been 3. It would sit a little bit nicer for you. All right, so I have 2 11-0s on, and then 2 going through those 2, circling around through those 2 Delicas that my thread is coming out of. Once you have those 2 on in the pink color, you're going to sew back through those 2. So this is ladder stitch. If you want to, you could decorate the sides so you don't see any thread with some of your 15-0 seed beads. That's up to you. I'm going to add 2 of those pink, circle back through those 2 pink, through the 2 pink that you just added. And this is one of those pendants where you learn kind of all the stitches. You've got herringbone, you've got peyote, you've got right angle weave, and now we're doing ladder here at the top. I contemplated doing herringbone, but I figured let's learn a new stitch. I got 2 beads on, going back into the beads the thread was coming out of, and then sewing back through the 2 beads that you just added. Once you have that, make sure you pull that down nice and tight against the pendant itself. That's going to be the front of my pendant, and now I'm going to do the back. So it's just going to be a repeat of what I just did, but instead of the pink, we are using black. So if I had to do this pendant again, I would use black thread, so that way you wouldn't see any of the extra thread as you come around to the front of your stitch. Going in then, I have my 2 black beads I'm coming out of, circling around. So that's my first set of 2. I'm going to do 2 more sets and then connect it to the right angle weave on the other side. 2 beads go on, sew through the bottom of the beads that the thread is coming out of, and then sew through the beads that you just put on. Give a nice tight pull then so you don't see lots of extra thread. Again, 2 more go on. When this finishes up our reversible square pendant, you're going to add 2 more and down through. If you want to, you can put a needle back on that starter thread, tie it off, tuck it in, that's up to you. When I come back to the other side here, I'm going to grab that other set of 2 beads that sits in that same right angle weave unit on this black back side. Sew through them so that my needle's going into the same side of my thread and out, and that rounds it out. Go back through the 2 that your thread was coming out of, and that gets you a nice reversible bail. Pink on one side, black on the other, so I can slip a piece of leather through. If you would see the pendant on this side, you would never guess that when you flip it over to the back side, you have that morning bird there. So have fun kind of playing around, creating, and working with it. Again, if you just want to do 1 cab, it'll look a little bit cleaner for you. You're just going to do 1 row of right angle weave with a single bead, and then you'll do single stitch peyote instead of that 2-drop peyote along the sides. Thanks so much for playing around and making this fun reversible square pendant. Remember, if you need any of the materials, you can go below me in the description, click the show more button or those little links, and you can shop from us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Remember, you can do this single, you can double, and you can have fun doing different things, including pendants and earrings and rings as well. Thanks so much for watching, and enjoy your own double-sided square pendant.